Welcome back to another edition of the Friday Golf Podcast. I am your host, Andy Johnson, and today we are going to talk about this year's President's Cup. This is obviously a huge event, a international match play competition. It's delivered some really great moments. It hasn't delivered a lot of parity in terms of who wins the event, but maybe this will be the year that it changes. Joining me today is the PGA Tour, Sean Martin, a regular guest here on this podcast. Sean's great. He is on the ground in Montreal, and we'll delve into his things that he's watching for this year's President's Cup. Before we get to Sean, today's podcast is brought to you by our own Club TFE. As we talked about last week on the main golf podcast I did with Garrett, this is Club TFE delves deep into the world of golf. We are producing a lot of content there, and if you are into golf course architecture, I think this is a must-have. We are producing a couple pieces a week on golf course architecture. There's a weekly course profile as well as a weekly design notebook right now. So, on top of that, you get early access to events. We've been doing some member-only events. We've got a few more coming down the pipe here. But check it out at thefriedegg.com/membership. And thank you guys for all the support. All right, let's get to Sean. Smartin, you are on the ground at in Montreal. Is this your first time to Montreal? What are your impressions?
First time. I was in Saskatchewan earlier this year to track down the farmer who almost crashed his tractor watching Nick Taylor win the Canadian Open last year.
What a bummer that is that he's not here. He didn't get that reheat potential for that story.
Kind of surprised. Yeah, it would have been good reheat. We're talking maybe some crop circles, with the President's Cup in it. Unfortunately, Nick's not here. So I feel like all of Canada, the full range. Saskatchewan, much different vibe than Montreal. So I feel like I've had a full Canadian experience, gotten lots of Tim Hortons, including this morning. We might go to a Canadians preseason game tonight. I feel very Canadian.
Has Tim Hortons grown on you at all?
The donuts are disappointing, which when I brought that up on Twitter, you got into some private equity money, or they got sold to a larger corporation where donut quality has decreased greatly. I'd compare them to an American gas station donut, which those have their place. I've been known to have one or two at a time, but the coffee's good. I do like the breakfast sandwiches, but the donuts are a big disappointment. The Timbits are a no-go.
The Timbits.
Some Canadians have even agreed with me, so I know it's a valid opinion.
The thing I've heard about from the stem from this Nick Taylor not being on the team is there's apparently like a East versus West Canada beef, and East Canada really looks down on West Canada. Allegedly, this is what I've been told. And
I could see it being similar to New York and LA kind of thing.
I don't think that exists at all in America. Compared,
we've had rap battles across the coast.
Some people are saying that Nick Taylor didn't get picked because he's from West Canada and Weir is from East Canada.
I know some of the guys have had relationships with Mike since they were kids, so I could definitely see him knowing those guys better, and it might have benefited them. But I could see, Vancouver is kind of like our Seattle, I think, and then Toronto is kind of like New York, so I could definitely see there's cultural differences there. And then just the proximity to the captain, longer relationships, those things factor into captain's picks. So I could see a little East Coast, West Coast beef, East Coast media bias, East Coast captain's bias, maybe.
That's what I'm hearing. Allegedly. This is all unsubstantiated rumors. Let's get into it. Let's get into what we're excited about, or three things we're watching for this year's President's Cup. I'm just going to say it out of the gate. I think this is going to be the best dressed President's Cup team of all time. Beat Draddy and Zero Restriction, our longtime partner, are clothing each team. I think they're going to be prepared. We're going to have no weather issues. We're going to have no no issues with any of the of being comfortable in Montreal, which weather seems like it might be a little factor. It's been a little cool there, right?
It is fall weather. There are leaves on the ground. It is a little maybe damp, but I mean, we are in the midst of fall. I feel very much in a Big Ten football setting.
That's good. That's good. All right, Spartan, what's the first thing that you're watching?
U.S. driving accuracy. We know with these road games that the playbook, especially in the Ryder Cup, is narrow the fairways, thicken the rough. Jim Furyk saw that firsthand with that team in 2018 that went over to Paris and just got decimated. And word is that Mike Weir is going to run the same playbook. We're talking 4-inch rough. There's been a lot of rain. The golf course superintendent's notes also noted there was a flooding incident, I believe, so it's been hard to mow. A little bit less control of the course for the captain in the Ryder Cup, but Mike did control the pre-tournament agronomy. And so I think we're thinking big rough, usually favors the internationals or the Europeans, but U.S. has 4 guys in the top 20 of driving accuracy. Colin Morikawa, Brian Harmon, Russell Henley, and Scottie Scheffler, actually, who's 17th. And 2 of those guys are captain's picks. I think Russell Henley was going to be a captain's pick no matter the skill set. Brian Harmon, I think, partly for the accuracy. And I think you have 4 guys there who could really anchor some foursomes teams. And I think this is a team where driving accuracy might be a strength and actually a slight advantage over the internationals.
Yeah, I mean, I got to push back here on the strategy. It's like running out just the strategy that worked 6 years ago or 8 years ago because it worked against the U.S. team, but not looking at the individual players. Like, if you look at, I mean, I do sympathize a bit with Mike Weir. Like, if you look at the U.S. team and you start by looking at Scheffler and Xander, I mean, like, what do? They're just better than anybody that you have. So what do you do? Like, I guess like that's the overarching issue here is, with trying to set up a golf course is our team is at a big talent deficit to the other team. So what do we do? And I guess that's where I would probably end up settling on, let's muck it up. Let's make it random. And if you narrow fairways, you make it more random.
When the width and angles kind of movement was first being talked about, Jeff Ogilvy was one of these proponents that narrow fairways, thick rough really takes a lot of skill out of it, because instead of the opportunity for the incredible recovery shot where players can really show their ability to shape shots and hit incredible recoveries, instead, thick rough, you reduce it to a pitch out, which is a shot that, I mean, anyone can execute. And so you bring in some randomness and you actually do possibly handcuff a team when you have this thicker rough. So it's a playbook that works. And it's also not one we've seen in the President's Cup, because 2 of the last 3 road President's Cups were at Royal Montreal, which is not exactly a place you're going to narrow fairways and grow thick rough. So this is a little different dynamic.
Royal Melbourne.
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's early for everybody.
All these royal golf courses, I'm in the presence of royalty. I can't keep it all straight.
How about this being the first Royal Montreal being the first royal club given royal status outside of the UK?
It is interesting, and it might be one of your things or mine, but it's the oldest golf club in North America. Royal Montreal says. I mean, that's their claim. Organization, but the golf course itself.
Everybody claims this. There's 30 courses in the world, in I think in the world, not just North America, that would make this claim.
Well, it only has to compete against the ones in North America, because it does say it's the oldest in North America. But the golf course itself,
I'm saying I could see a course. This claim's so preposterous. I could see a course in a different continent claiming this.
I always thought it was St. Andrews in New York that was the oldest in North America. Maybe it was the oldest in the U.S.
What about Chicago golf? What about the golf course that CB McDonald went and played in Lake Forest, Illinois? That
Conway Farms?
It's not Conway Farms. The hat I got on today. But he played golf in a yard, basically. Is that the first golf course?
I mean, part of what Royal Montreal was is basically there was a park in Montreal and they were hitting golf shots in it, and then I guess eventually put in some holes. So the golf club designation for anyone back then was, I think, fairly loose. You just kind of hit shots in a park, kind of like Brunsfield Links in Edinburgh, which is always one of my favorite golf experiences.
There's a place in Charleston too. There was apparently golf in Charleston very early too. They try and make a claim too.
Bruntsfield is one of the most terrifying golf courses in the world because all the holes are like 70 yards. You're in some park with like unkept turf and you're trying to nip like a little wedge with cars parked right behind the green. It is not for the faint of heart.
I do think, like, irrationally, cars are the scariest thing that you could put near a golf course. It's not like we're not worried about other people. You know, we're less worried about people and the idea of like seriously injuring a person than we are about breaking a windshield. Like, when you think about that, it's kind of messed up, right?
The golf course I grew up on was a real short course, like 5,000 yards. But the one like true hole was this 550 par 5. It was a dogleg left with a road on the left. And it was a terrifying tee shot. We're right on track.
Yeah. I mean, it's,
do you want me to pivot to your next thing?
Yeah. Well, I was going to kick it. I was going to say, is there anything about the golf course that you're particularly outside of the fairway lines? Is there anything about the golf course that you're excited about, or is this kind of just a course? It feels like compared to like Royal Melbourne, which is probably an unfair comparison. It does feel like just kind of a course.
I haven't had a chance to walk it yet. I mean, the interesting thing going back to that oldest club designation is the golf course itself is a mid 20th century Dick Wilson. So the guy who designed Bay Hill, Doral. It's a very parkland golf course. There's a lot of just grass, a lot of places to hit it. I haven't seen anything super distinguishing on the par with Royal Melbourne, if you will, but it's just super parkland vibes. I think it'll be a good setting for the matches themselves. It's the stage, and then obviously the competition is kind of the focus.
Yeah. All right. My first thing that I have that I am most excited about is first timer Sahith Theegala. Obviously a player that we've seen kind of ascend in the last year. And what I'm excited about is that this is just a fun player to watch. He's got a tremendous personality. I think, like, in terms of PGA Tour players, he is very much the opposite of your stock PGA Tour player. He is he's extremely friendly. He has a game that he hits a lot of different shots. Like, it's not just like he just hits the same shot all the time. Like, he's got a wide array of shots around the greens. And I just think his personality and energy are very unique for the modern game. So I am extraordinarily excited about him. He's up to 11th in the world. Him getting his debut in these team competitions, he could be somebody that becomes kind of a linchpin, a player that like energizes the rest of the team. So Sahith Theegala, first timer, is one of the things that I am watching.
I think he's a guy that guys are going to be lining up to play with. I think everyone in that team room would like a chance to play with him. He's a guy that I love in foursomes, actually, because the biggest thing with foursomes is you hate making mistakes and putting your partner in a bad spot. And there might be no one better on the PGA Tour right now, both on approach play and short game, of just creating shots and getting out of bad situations than Sahith Theegala. Because he used to be such a wild driver that he had to. And he's got a crazy set of hands. But now, actually, his driving is much improved, and it's why he's had the best year of his career, because now he's keeping it in play more often. But, I mean, that is a guy who, like you said, hits all the shots, amazing recovery shots. And so I love him in foursomes for that reason. He's like a safety net.
All right. What's your next thing?
I'm going to go captain's picks, especially US. We have two people here, myself and Paul Hodawanek. Paul's focused on international team. I'm US. So most of my research has been US based.
I should have given you this shirt that I'm wearing.
You should have shipped it over. Shirt. I am wearing a zero restriction vest. I think I got it back at the Thoroughbred. So it's several years old, but still one of my favorite pieces. It's a great vest. Warm but slim.
We gotta get you a box of gear. I don't want to infringe on your straight down partnership.
But I wasn't going to mention names. I do have loyalties to another clothing company. I didn't want to come onto this pod and violate any agreements.
It's all right. I'm happy to say you're a straight down ambassador.
But the U.S. captain's picks, whether it was coincidence or not, Jim went number 7 through 12 on the points list.
Do you think it was a coincidence?
I don't know.
Seems like a Jim Furyk thing to do.
It feels like hey, these guys earned it. They were 7 through 12. I'm not going to bump anyone off the team. They earned it. They deserve it. It's a very, player's mentality for his fellow players. But there's especially, I think, with Max. I mean, even Max, I think, would admit there's probably pressure on him that he's got to perform. And it's been a tough season. I mean, I was out there in Memphis when he finished last. And that was a guy on the range, frustrated and searching. And then even at BMW, he was near last through most of the tournament, shot a final round 67, said he found something, but then he missed the cut at Silverado just a couple weeks ago. So, that's one where you look at Max and you wonder, should you have taken Justin Thomas? Obviously, Billy Horschel's BMW PGA win makes people wonder about Billy, but you can't go back in hindsight. I think Billy was making a strong case. He was playing really well after the Open, but faded maybe a little bit at the last two events. And really when he needed to play well for, I think, another 2 weeks. But I just think
maybe he was just tired.
He could have been.
It's hard being Billy,
It is.
He's got a lot of obligations.
His motor runs hot. He's a high energy guy. He's leaving nothing on the field.
How about his propensity, his knack? To use another sports term, he's like they say football player. This guy's just got a knack for the ball. Defensive player on football. Billy's just got a knack for winning events after international competition teams have been picked.
He does, and I saw some tweets about, I wish Billy was at the President's Cup. Oh wait, he's not, and it's like, what are you going to do? I'm kind of surprised 3 of the international guys played the BMW PGA. And obviously you're going the opposite way across the Atlantic, but flying across the Atlantic on Sunday before last year's Ryder Cup really hurt the U.S. team. And I was surprised that 3 guys from the international team played the BMW PGA.
Especially with the Thursday start. It's not like the Ryder
day.
Cup with the Friday. Like if it's Friday, I could see like you'd feel probably fine coming back that way, right?
I was doing a little math. I asked actually Radar Atlas. I asked him how long a private jet flight from London to Montreal is. It's only 5.5 hours. And so if they wrapped up at, let's say, 4 p.m., let's say wheels up at 5, you're leaving at noon Montreal time. You could hypothetically be on the ground at 5 or 6 p.m. Sunday. So it's doable, I guess. But to me, I'm not just being a PGA Tour homer, but the Pro Tour felt like a much easier warm-up event.
Well, you don't get to play the week before, though.
Right. But you also don't have jet lag. I'm soft when it comes to jet lag. I get jet lag going from Florida to California, so I do everything to avoid it. So
I just dealt with a toddler switching time zones for a couple of days. A short trip, which is not fun. So
their body clocks don't adjust.
No. It was like up late, then up early because it was light out. It's still, you should still be sleeping. And she'd look as she pulled the shades up. It's light out. What do you say back to that?
Wait till they get a clock. My kids now have clocks in their bed, and it's like you can sleep as late as you want. Like if you're tired, just stay in bed. They're like, no, I'm getting up at 6:30. I get up at 6:30. Doesn't matter. They won't sleep late. So I don't know why they hate sleep. I'm like, just sleep. It's fine. It's great.
Here's a course thing that I'm watching.
Is this your second thing? I did like 4 things. Sorry, so we'll get your second thing.
This is good. This is great. Course thing that I'm watching. All the par 3s are odd numbers. This is just a unique little wrinkle for foursomes and alternate shot. So, and this is a great way to analyze captains and what they're doing. There's nothing that viewers love more than is to lump blame on the captains.
Totally.
So we could say that there is captain malpractice if someone in foursomes puts a bad iron player on the odd holes.
Definitely. 100%.
Or a great putter on the even holes.
Yep.
So you have the ability here this is like kind of like nerdy in the weeds. Like if you like alternate shot, this is like a kind of a really cool setup in the sense that it's so slanted to the odd holes with the iron play. So put your best iron player on an odd hole. This is an opportunity to create kind of these teams where you have like great iron players. I think one of the unique things is I think Mike Weir was thinking about this with his captain's picks. He talked about putting, which is like kind of like it's kind of a weird skill to zoom in on when you're making captain's picks. Is I want great putters, but maybe this is what he was thinking about.
Well, you look back at 2022 and, Trevor passed up on Mac Hughes, who's a great putter. And, they had Mark Brody in the team room that year, as well as a couple other stats guys. But they really, and Quail Hollow is a ball striker's golf course, whatever that means. Every golf course is a ball striker's golf course. But it is a place where distance is rewarded and guys who are high in strokes gained off the tee, especially we've seen it with Rory's dominance there. And so they went ball strikers and did not pick like a Mac Hughes, let's say. And then talking to Trevor later that year, he was talking about the stats because the U.S. ran out to a big lead. And I think the U.S., he said, gained like 20 more shots on the greens than the internationals in the first 2 rounds. And then internationals made a bit of a comeback on Saturday, and Sunday was a little bit closer. But putting mattered in 2022. Putting was the difference. As much as you maybe think of the U.S. team as longer, maybe superior ball strikers, like it was really putting that really did the internationals in last time. And I think this might be a bit of a reaction to that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think like at the end of the day, what puts the most pressure on somebody else in match play is great tee to green play. Like when you just feel like you can't breathe because somebody keeps hitting shot after shot close, that's the worst feeling in match play. I will say it's probably close. A close second is when like somebody like you feel like they're never going to miss.
Yeah.
But like if you're 15 feet away and the other guy's 25 feet away, like the greatest putter in the world's not going to make up that advantage.
Right.
So it should be interesting. Like I think like those, Mac Hughes, for example, has to be out in every alt shot session. Like if he's not, like, why is he on the team? Right.
It's interesting too, because how much you have 12 roster spots, how much can you really go for specialists? That's the other side on the putters. Like, are you going to pick a guy just for his putter? Is the gain outweighed by, I'm not saying Mac Hughes is an inferior ball striker, but like you said, it is hard to pick guys like in baseball, you have your defensive replacements or your pinch hitters. Like, do you have your like designated putter? Is that worth a roster spot? I don't know. Could be.
Yeah. The, I don't know. It's an interesting, like I could see having 1 or 2, but like tipping the scales to we want putters is an interesting choice, Now, like if they all get hot, it could be the greatest choice because if they're all hot, also if you narrow fairways, maybe putting is more relevant because of chip outs, right? And getting up and down.
Par saves.
I
actually miss. I miss I feel like we don't have in baseball anymore the guy that was just the designated hitter. Like I always think of Matt Stairs. I mean, he's the guy. Like that was it. That's all he was doing. He wasn't starting. He wasn't playing the field. Maybe it's because the designated hitters in both leagues. He's just your designated hitter now. But I miss the guy who was getting $1 million a year, and he just came in for designated hitting.
And he only
hitting.
played in one league. He only was available to half the league.
Yeah.
That was the other best part about it. I loved that in Major League Baseball there were two leagues with different rules. Like that made them feel like different leagues.
Yeah.
Right. And then in the World Series they would alternate based off of who. I mean, that was awesome.
Yeah. I mean, the AL pitchers, I mean, they couldn't hit anything. I mean, it was brutal. I mean, but imagine you don't hit all year and then you're facing like 100-mile-an-hour gas. I mean, you're just
best. I said something to someone. I got lucky. I went to the Cubs, the first home World Series game when they were in the World Series against the Indians, Game 3. And I said something to a former Major League pitcher. I was like, oh yeah, I can't remember who the pitching matchup was, but they were like, it was like the not great pitchers. I mean, the number 3 pitchers. The guy's like, oh yeah. So number 3 pitcher, a guy pitching in the World Series, starting a World Series game, not a great pitcher. Like he took like very great offense to it. I think it would be similar to being like, Mackenzie Hughes. He was a captain's pick, not a great player. Being like, oh, a guy playing in the President's Cup, not a great player.
Right.
Like all these guys are great players. It was just like it was actually like a super interesting like response of like something that made you like think about like what you said. Like anybody pitching in the World Series, starting a game in the World Series is a great pitcher.
You think of all the people. I always think of like the funnel because I have kids playing sports now. Of like how many millions of kids are playing baseball right now, and then you have like how many kids even go to play high school, and then D1, and then even make it to the minors is even like a super small percentage, and then to make it to the World Series. That's why like I'm super fascinated by. I mean, the Cooties, yeah, their grandfather won the Masters. They grew up with that advantage of having that wisdom, but like the Højgaards also like having brothers. Especially twins make it to the highest level in their sport. I mean, like just one person making it that far is pretty incredible.
And what about LeBron and Bronny?
You know, there's a lot. It's a complex situation. There's a lot. I mean, you have obviously genetics. He's got great genes for height and speed. You know,
I forgot to congratulate you about Otani.
I was at that game. It was amazing. I was at that game. And then Sunday was even better. They were down by 1 in the bottom of the ninth. Otani leads off in homers, and then Betts homers next. Now I'm in my wheelhouse, man. That game was incredible, though. I talked to Nico Daris of Golf Blueprint, who a lot of people know. Like, we talk about power, and like you watch Otani, and I feel like he looks like a long drive guy teeing off. And that first homer he hit in that Miami game was a shot. And there's like nobody in that stadium. The roof is closed, and it's like a gunshot. And that thing is just gone. But I love watching the way Otani like uses his body. It looks like a guy, like a long drive guy, just fully extending.
I gotta just wonder. I don't know if anybody's done this, but what Pete Rose is thinking.
I mean, on what? I'm sure he's thinking a lot of things on a lot of things
about Otani.
Like, should he gamble on him?
Like, well, how come Otani hasn't gotten treated like I got treated?
He has been cleared. That was an unfortunate situation. He was the victim of malfeasance. Don't get me started.
There's a Dodgers fan right there. You know, that World Series, not to throw some salt in the wound, that World Series game, I was sitting in Dodgers tickets.
Okay. Yeah. So, I don't get super sentimental about sports, but my first child was born that October. And so you're up in the middle of the night, right, with your wife, helping change diapers and feeding. And I was like, and all the games were on super late because the Dodgers are on the West Coast. And I'm like, man, it would be so cool if like they win the first World Series since '88. And I'm like in the middle of the night watching it with my newborn son. And then, of course, they lose and can't win a full season World Series.
My sentimental moment of early child having a kid super early was in the, you know, it was during the middle of COVID. So I was in it was just my wife, me, and my daughter in the hospital room, no visitors, and the Women's Open at Royal Troon Popoff's win was on, and I was just, you know, laying with my daughter watching Women's Open like early at crazy hours in the morning.
I thought you were going to tell me that like Illinois was facing Northwestern for the Big Ten East Division title or something.
We're a Big Ten West team. Also, sorry. You know, could be going to coming down south in the late fall or winter for CFP games. You know,
probably at this point you guys should be Big Ten East. They need to rework those divisions. It's like when the Braves were in the NL West.
I think we still would be West though.
I mean, with like Oregon and Washington.
It's Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA, Iowa, Nebraska, and then, I mean, like there's 18 teams. So there's Iowa, Nebraska, Minnesota, and then it's like Illinois and Wisconsin would be the next West teams.
I actually don't watch a ton of college football, mostly because Cal Poly football they're on ESPN Plus, but they usually don't have the best cameramen they hire for the games. It's a little shaky, and FSU is my wife's team, so I kind of glom onto that. But I love following. Feeling? You know, we got a big win against Cal, big ACC win. So I think we're off the schneid. You know, we're waiting for conference play. We're really just peaking for conference play. But I love conference realignment. I'll read everything about conference realignment. Like Utah State, which was in the Big West, which is in Cal Poly's division when I was in college. I mean, Cal Poly and Utah State facing a Big West Conference basketball championship game. They're going to be in the Pac-12 now, possibly. Like, I don't know. I don't know why.
I thought they just turned it down.
Oh, did they? That's right. They did turn it down. See, I'm not up to it. Yeah, but I love
Cal
conference
Poly
realignment.
might be a big Pac-12 team.
We can make a case for it. We're good in some smaller sports. The football would be a tough go, but we do. John Madden.
We're talking about this right now.
We're so off topic. I have another thing. We actually had a great segue to my last thing, and I totally blew through it to talk about Otani or something. I don't know. Do you want to get to my
What's
third
your
thing?
next thing? Yeah.
It was actually, we're talking about the designated putters. It was Scottie Scheffler. Scheffler's 0-5-3 in the last 2 team matches. I think there's explanations for it. Maybe there are excuses, but you look at 2022, he's coming off this like life-changing year where he, wins his first major, becomes number 1. He's dealing with all the adjustments to being the number 1 player in the world. And I think it was a big adjustment for him. I think you can make a case he's exhausted and didn't play great. And also, as a lot of people have said, him and Sam Burns just had the fortune of they hit some really hot teams on the international side. And then last year, obviously, he's in the depths of his putting struggles. I think Scottie should statistically have a great President's Cup this week. But if he doesn't, you got to wonder what's going on for this time of year.
Can we talk about saddling him with Sam Burns?
Well, so I'm going to make a case.
Like, what are we doing?
I think we keep him with Sam Burns. If not maybe Brian Harmon. I think I can make a Brian Harmon case. Harmon.
Can we just have somebody that can put the ball in the fairway?
Well, that's why I'm saying Brian Harmon. If you don't do Sam, you have
that's the problem with Sam Burns. You got your best, the best iron player on the planet with a terrible driver of the golf ball. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
If you don't stick him with Sam, it's Brian Harmon. Top 10, top 20 in driving accuracy, solid iron player, solid putter. He's 8 yards shorter than Scottie. But Scottie can afford to sacrifice 8 yards off the tee. He's great with his irons. He's number 1 in proximity from 150 to 175. He's a great mid-iron player. So you can stick him with someone who's shorter than he's accustomed to. So I do think Brian Harmon would be the guy for foursomes if it's not Sam Burns.
I think another guy that would be good for him, Keegan Bradley. Just a tee to green machine, right?
Going back to captain's picks, Keegan's another one that, yeah, he won the BMW, which he almost wasn't in until Tom Kim collapsed. But other than that, the record is the last few weeks wasn't great.
I mean, Morikawa would be another great pairing for Scheffler.
Yeah.
You look at, there's only one player that I think would be a worse pairing than Sam Burns, an alternate shot for Scheffler.
Wyndham?
Yeah.
You love to dog Wyndham for his driver.
I don't love to dog Wyndham.
You were dogging him before the Olympics about his driver. And then he, or after he had that first, you were dancing on his grave after that horrible first round at like Golf National. And then he comes back and shoots like 14 under in the last 3 rounds.
I like Wyndham. Wyndham, most people probably don't know this. The first podcast Wyndham ever was on this podcast when he was just turning pro. I've been a Wyndham supporter since his amateur days. Like, you accuse me of dogging him.
I just remember there's some takes after his first round at Le Golf National.
I mean, his I'm just calling balls and strikes.
He told
driver accuracy is not good.
He told our Paul Hodowanik he'd been dealing with a lower back injury, and then he blitzed the Olympics the last 3 rounds.
Yeah.
Well, I like Wyndham. Good. I've always really enjoyed Wyndham. I think is a great
backdoor T6 in the 48 player field. Congratulations.
He's had some better signs since the Olympics.
He has. He's a great player. I think What's
your thing?
What's my thing?
Yeah.
All right, my last thing here, Taylor Pendrith.
Yep.
Actually,
I'm putting the weight of the international team on Taylor Pendrith.
I'm gonna wait for that. I got another question for you. I just have like a general question that we haven't talked about.
I can't wait for this.
Does the P Cup? This is just such a broad question. Does the P Cup need the internationals to win?
I mean, I don't want to go down Adam Schupak's road. I think
you don't want to get explicit profanities yelled at you by Jim Furyk. You're worried about seeing Captain Jim Furyk.
Solly said he spoke to Adam about the incident, and Adam and Jim, as fellow Pontevedrans, have known each other for a long time, and so it was a little bit tongue in cheek. It wasn't quite as harsh, finger in the chest, Bobby Knight, as it maybe comes across in print.
Oh, well, when people didn't read Adam's piece.
Well, you got a quote graphic made out of it.
Yeah. Now you got the aggregators, the new, you get things nucleared on you, you know.
I love going nuclear. No vowel. Well, one vowel.
Do you so you think
real quick on aggregators, a great conversation with Woj retiring. They said that they don't know, will there ever be an insider like Woj again, or is it just going to be the aggregators that are going to fill the vacuum? I follow nuclear very closely, so they do a service, but they also can, it can lead to misunderstandings like the Adam Schupak incident.
I think like the key to the aggregators is always go to the source. Take the aggregators as this pops up on my timeline, and then I'm going to go to whoever, if they actually source it, which is always a question.
The hard part is, X throttles posts with external links on them. And so Nuclear does a good job of they reply with the link, but they can't put it in the post anymore because they put it in the post, nobody sees it.
Yeah. Those guys understand the algorithm. A little nuclear discussion. So your answer is yes, the internationals need to win?
I think keep it close.
They have to win.
Yeah, I mean, look,
at some point.
The other thing, the U.S. can't afford to lose. If we go into Bethpage having lost 2 in a row, just getting throttled at Rome, and then losing a President's Cup, I mean, the whole infrastructure, you got to tear it up, and you got to have a new task force.
Well, that's why. Well, Keegan's the outlier. It's almost like Keegan was picked to protect themselves against the U.S. losing at Royal Montreal, so that the PGA could go, listen, this is a new era with Keegan Bradley coming in.
Hey, there's a Charles Schwab Challenger commercial on in the media center, but it's not you.
Oh, thanks. I heard from a lot of people because it came on at the right at the like critical moment of last week's BMW PGA. Like it was like they were coming up 18 and it came on. Can you
complain about commercial load if you're in the commercials?
Yeah, you can still complain.
Okay.
I don't want the commercials airing. I don't want people seeing me, you know? I think Keegan Bradley is just like, what if he goes like 4-0?
Yeah.
Does that fuel him picking himself?
I don't think he would. I think he'd have to qualify. I don't think he'd pick himself.
What if he's 7th in points?
I think.
Does the BMW count as a?
Bethpage is his home course. He's a New Yorker. He has to play.
PJ's shaking his head as Long Islander there. He can't jump on. He's in producer mode. I don't know. It's interesting.
I wonder, is it more valuable for him for next year to be a player this week and get the time inside the ropes with the guys, or to have been a captain's assistant?
I think player.
You think so?
Honestly, yeah. I think being a captain is completely overblown. It's a lot of dinners.
You got to pair with guys
sponsored glad handing. Yeah. It's figuring out what kind of food players like. This is, I think, and then it's like the important part of being captain is like the pick stuff. Who's pairing with who. Getting guys to come together. I think from that standpoint, being a player is actually having connection to the players, and being a player is really important.
Well, then do you limit your, Keegan's participation this week? Like, do you only pair him with guys who you are really confident are going to be on the Ryder Cup team next year? No. I think you play to win, but I think just Keegan being around the players all the time and seeing how how a schedule works or doesn't work for players. Obviously, like Xander's been pretty outspoken about these competitions and the dinners and different things, how it like interrupts his flow. I think, there's probably some deep rooted other reasons that he doesn't like these competitions that center around monetary compensation. But I think like understanding what works and what doesn't work as a player
from what the captain sets up is probably pretty invaluable. Like being that connected to where you played the last year. Now, what would throw a whole wrench in is if he qualifies. Like, then who's the captain? Like, you can't be like a playing captain's not actually a captain, right?
Right. Well, so who'd Tiger lean on? I mean, I guess you.
And then if Keegan plays as a playing captain and it goes so well, do they have to run it back 4 years later?
Make Scottie the playing captain in 2027?
Captain.
That's speaking of Pete Rose. Playing captains might be in.
Yeah, that's right. Good. I'm glad we tied that whole baseball conversation back. Hey, let's take a quick break. One of the things that we've done in the Pro Shop is we have just launched a fall line. There are some awesome pieces in this drop. One of which is named after me. Big congrats to B. Draddy for being the clothing sponsor of this year's President's Cup. But one of the pieces is the Andy hoodie. That's a B. Draddy piece. We have that in our Pro Shop. Another thing that I would highly recommend is fall. Fall's coming. There is an American Needle crew neck in there that I really, really like. On top of that, we have some new polos, new hats, all sorts of stuff. Meg did a really great job here. Check out our Pro Shop at proshop.thefriedegg.com. Thanks, and let's get back to Sean. All right. Questions. Last parting question outside of who's going to win. Which players on each side intrigue you the most?
Tom Kim is one. Obviously, such a
international superstar.
Yeah, breakout star in 2022. He's only played twice since the Open. He played the Olympics, and then he
didn't qualify.
Well, he played the Olympics, and then he played the FedEx St. Jude, and then he was out. And that's guy you would feel like is ripe to play the Pro Tour, but he hasn't played since Memphis. Last time we saw him was that tough finish. He finished 6-6-6 to miss BMW, and I get the need for a layoff this time of year, but man, that's a long layoff.
Where would you like him play, Procore or
I think Procore was made sense
Wentworth?
I'll be honest. I mean, Adam Scott knows what he's doing. I didn't love the Wentworth thing.
I saw he just was going to stay in bed. How about that answer? I'm not going out to practice. I'm staying in my hotel.
Yeah, like go to Napa and then you get a week off in between and, less jet lag. It's 3 hours instead of 5. I don't know. I'm not going to second guess Adam Scott when it comes to golf decisions, but that just seemed like a curious one to me. I mean, look, Byung Yunon's won the BMW before. Adam's a global player. Siwoo Kim, I can't remember the last DP World Tour event that Siwoo Kim played.
Yeah. I mean, all these international players, that's the ironic thing. They're just PGA Tour players.
The internationals, though, the guys that played Procore outplayed the Americans at Procore. Mackenzie Hughes, Corey Connors.
I mean, that's a pretty small sample size. Right?
Totally. But I mean, Wyndham missing the cut. I mean, because Wyndham, as we've discussed, has been a little up and down the second half of the year. He missed the cut. Max missed the cut after having a few weeks to try to straighten out whatever was bothering him.
Sahith wasn't great, right?
T7.
Okay.
I think Sahith is going to be, on the U.S. side, Sahith I think is going to be, not breakout star. He's the 11th ranked player in the world, but I think this is going to be a good week for Sahith.
All right. Here's the players I'm most interested in. Taylor Pendrith.
Yep.
Last time we saw him in this competition, he was like what was he, like 115th in the world?
Yeah.
He started this year 106. I think like when you look at Pendrith, he's got he had some like raw skills that were very interesting. Now he won no points last President's Cup, but he comes into this, he's like a completely different player. If you look at the Data Golf rankings, he went from basically 116 to 27 in those rankings over the course of this year, 2024. You could make an argument that he's probably like a top 3 player in terms of like, this year on the international team. He's got a lot of power. He's, I think, one of the most impressive players on the international team this year. So I think he is kind of like a linchpin. If he can go out and play like and get 3 points, I think they're in a really good spot.
The crazy thing is the jump in putting. In 2022, he was not a good putter, and he was part of that problem on the international side. He's like top 10 in strokes gained putting this year. So you have a guy who's that long and an elite putter. It's a great combination.
Yeah, that's the thing. So I think he's just like kind of a key player. On the American side, I pointed out Sahith just for a little variety. I'll go with Max. I think, I think like everybody's always looking to criticize picks, and I think if he could go get some points on the board early, it will help any second guessing if this is close with Furyk and the Max Homa pick, because it's like, even if it's like 1-2-1 or 1-1, like if you get a point on the board right out of the gate, nobody's going to second guess you. It's like kind of the silly thing about this competition and the way match play works is like you could be a captain's pick and you could go make like 6 birdies a day
and lose
and lose every match, and people will be like, why was this guy picked? It's like, well, I just got the bad luck of the draw. Yeah. Or you could go out and you could win every match shooting like 74 if you just get like the luck of the draw. Yeah. So I think like there needs to be a little bit deeper level of critique in terms of like who played well, who didn't. But if you go out and win your first match of the Ryder Cup or the President's Cup, you're pretty much exempt from critique. Like people it's just an immediate like, you know what, that guy's great. Like, or even if your matches get to like 18 and you lose, oh, it was close. It was close. So for Max, who's might be struggling with this game coming into this, just get a point on the board right out of the gates, and nobody's gonna look at you.
I think it's a great week for him too. Match play is a good format for a guy who's struggling the way he is, because you know what, he's not driving it great right now. You make a triple, okay, you lose a hole. It doesn't mean you're going to miss the cut. Your whole week is derailed. You just move on to the next hole. So I think, maybe like Adam Scott in 2009 when he wasn't playing well and he got a captain's pick and it kind of turned him around. I think this could be a good environment actually for Max, because match play is a little more forgiving.
All right, what's your pick?
I'm going to go USA 15-13. Or no, there's 30 points. Sorry. 16-14. I mean,
he went with the Ryder Cup points there.
Yeah.
17-13. It's kind of a blowout.
USA or international?
USA.
So you can't put your money.
Your pick.
You're not.
Your pick.
Yeah. I think 16-14. I mean, internationals, they won Saturday last time. Singles were close-ish. Like every time, it had that 45 minutes where like the odds probably weren't actually that great, but like you're like, well, if Xander doesn't close this out, it could get interesting.
Is the 4-ball discrepancy where like they just get absolutely murdered in foursomes? Because foursomes, the talent? Is that the talent?
Yeah, there's nowhere to hide. You need 2 players playing well. 4 balls, one guy can carry a team, and if one guy pitches in a couple birdies and the other guy makes 6, that works. But foursomes, both guys need to be playing well. Which, I mean, that's the same thing you've seen it.
So is that the whole, like, his remedy is putters?
Designated putters. Matt Stairs come in to, knocks him in the hole. Knock him out of the park, knock him in the hole.
If we get another 1911, what is the, what's the future of the event look like?
I mean, a lot could change in the golf world between now and 2026.
That's a good answer. That's it. I mean, 2026, Medina's going to be fun.
The other thing, too, I mean, you talk about like golf course setup. Medina, probably like Davis Love did in 2012, no rough, Bomber's Paradise. USA didn't win that Medina Ryder Cup, but they had to have a historic collapse not to. That one plays right into the U.S. hands. I mean, I don't know the renovation. I don't know. You've been there. I haven't.
How about the fact that and the international captain squad is an architect?
Yeah.
Might be able to show him some tricks.
I love it.
What interesting thing about that one, we'll do a little 2026 Peak Cup preview here. is the way they rerouted it. The first 3 holes are like some of the most interesting architecturally for the golf course. It'll be OB left on all of the first 3 holes. They're effectively all boundary holes.
Love that.
And like, it's kind of very, remember like the first day at Royal Melbourne when the first hole, like everybody, all the Americans were bailing way right, and it was that short par 4 and they could not get up and down. And all the internationals just hit irons up the left. And like, they got off to a great start in every match because of that first hole. It could be similar with Medina.
Could you imagine the feeling standing on the first tee of one of these events and you just pump it OB? And it's 4 balls, so you have to re-tee.
I mean, I played their media day, the media thing there.
I didn't get that invite.
I hit 4 balls out of bounds in like a 3-hole stretch.
Isn't there the one? Is there the hole that I see on Twitter?
I was actively trying to hit it close to the boundary line.
That's a very architecture take.
Yeah, well, like you're playing the hole, you want to see how it works. Like I'm trying to get to the right spot. Like I'm not out there trying to post a score. I'm like out there playing the golf course, trying to have fun with the golf course.
Not hitting an OB is not fun for me. I don't know about you, but
it got pretty fun after like the 4th ball went out of bounds in a 2-hole period. I also want to say 1 ball hit
You're like
the fence.
Tin Cup. You just stick your hand up for your caddy to give you another ball. Like, no, I'm hitting it down this left side. I don't care.
One ball hit the fence and bounced back in play. I almost hit 5 balls out of bounds.
Andy made eagle on his 5th ball. That's what
insane.
everyone will remember.
But yeah, I don't know. What were you saying about the out of bounds?
I saw it on Twitter that there was like a bunker that goes through an out of bounds fence. Is that a thing?
Yeah.
Okay. So can you be in the bunker but out of bounds?
Yeah. There's like no way the ball's going to stop there.
Do they draw
the way it's shaped? The ball is going to roll it back in play.
Do they draw a line in the sand? Like,
yeah.
How do you? Okay.
That's how it would technically be. There's rumors that the tour wants to remove the fence, which would be sad.
It's not my department. I can't comment on that.
Yeah. The one green is insane where it's like right next to it. I mean, like I hit like what I thought was going to be a really good shot, and the wind just like it landed just off the green, just like gone.
Sometimes, Americans are used to short grass being good, but sometimes you can land it on short grass and not be in a good position.
All right, Smartin. I'm gonna go. My pick is I'm gonna pick the internationals.
I was gonna say you gotta put your money where your mouth is. Yeah.
What do I have to lose? I'll go 15 and a half, 14 and a half internationals, nail biter.
How does it end?
It ends with Mackenzie Hughes in the anchor match. He's been dreadful, unplayable all week. There have been calls from Western Canada for the Western Canada, East Canada beef has bubbled up to the forefront. Never has anybody seen Canadians so mad at each other. And then Mackenzie Hughes on the 18th green in the anchor match cans a 55-foot putt that makes everybody forget about Nick Taylor's historic putt in your article about the farmer on his tractor.
Mackenzie has a lot of pressure because all the advertisements in town, it's Scottie Scheffler and Xander for the U.S. and it's Mackenzie Hughes and Corey Connors for the internationals. So like he is the face of the President's Cup.
Pendrith? Why isn't Taylor Pendrith on those? He's arguably the best of the 3.
I would. Mackenzie's more of a known quantity, I would say. Man, by the way, Kent State football is bad. I don't know how closely Taylor Pendrith and Mackenzie Hughes and Corey Connors follow it, but those guys play college golf together.
Do you think they should bring Kent State's the coach that retired up out of retirement to be an assistant captain?
I don't think they're going that far, but I believe he'll be here because he's actually Canadian. I didn't realize that.
What's his name again?
Herb
He's a
Page.
legend.
Yeah, Herb Page.
Like one of the great college golf coaches of all time.
I mean, to take Kent State and make them into a golf power, have 3 guys. I think you had 3 guys play the Olympics, 3 guys play the President's Cup. He's like Herb Brooks, stuff. Herb Page. Great coaches are named Herb. It's a great coach name.
He should be an assistant coach this week.
Maybe they were afraid to be, too much influence in the room. Who are you going to listen to? The old college coach or your boyhood idol?
Legit, Corey Connors, I do think should go out in like every format if he's got the fitness level to do it.
I mean, I actually do like the Thursday start because it's more likely guys can play 5.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I mean, Thursday, Friday, there's 5 matches, so you can only sit 2 guys a day. That, hurts the internationals because the U.S. has more depth, but...
That's hurts the internationals. Who sits?
Day 1?
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's a lot of pressure. It's going to be 4 balls, so that matters because they want to start off with their best format. Internationals get to pick. Who sits? Honestly, 4 balls is a great session to get your rookies out. So I see like on the international side, I think Min Woo is out there, but you also want to put your best players out there. I mean, Min Woo fits both boxes. On the U.S. side, I would probably say, I think you sit Keegan. He's a little bit older. He's probably a foursomes specialist. So you give him a rest, sit Keegan, and then maybe sit Harmon. I like Brian. I think Brian could have a great President's Cup. He played great with Max at Rome. He had the second most points on the team as a 35-year-old rookie, which is pretty impressive. But I also don't know if they're going to send out guys in their mid-30s to play 5.
Yeah. I think, yeah.
Or you sit, honestly, I don't know, you sit some younger guys, then you have them run the gauntlet and play every match from then on in. I don't know.
I think there's actually like a case that you don't sit your struggling player.
Yeah. Well, 4 balls is a great format if you're struggling to go out and play because you can hide a little bit with your partner.
Yeah. Yeah. That's and then if you sit and then you play bad the next day, that's going to be like what everybody's talking about.
I mean, the other thing, one of Europe's keys is success is that it figured out with the analytics that it just should never sit someone for the entire first day. So they made sure to play everyone on the team on the Fridays of Ryder Cups, at least in one session. So everyone played. No more 1999 Andrew Coulthard sitting out until Sunday or whatever. Everyone played Friday, but you don't have that option at the President's Cup. 2 guys just have to sit that day because there's only one session.
Yeah. I do kind of like the 4-day format. I don't love it from a competition standpoint because of what it kind of magnifies like the kind of competition of the issue. But I do like the Thursday, Friday. It does like a nice, like you said, it allows people to play 5 sessions more often. All right, Smartin, thank you for coming on. Do you have anything that you're working on this week?
Our team has some great stuff. Paul Hodowanik did a feature on Phil Kenyon, obviously the guy that turned around Scottie's putting, but also works with Russell Henley, Max Homa. And that's a good read. I've never seen something as in-depth on Phil, so that was a nice piece for us. Cameron Morfitt doing a great piece on Sahith Theegala. He's really gotten to know Sahith well over the years as he's been on tour. And so a nice feature on kind of like we talked about that progression into becoming an even better player and not just a guy that's a great scrambler, but really a great ball striker now as well. So I think those are the big things. But no, I appreciate you having me on. I feel like just like Matt Stairs, we touched them all. We hit every topic. This is your go-to President's Cup preview.
Got it back. Conference realignment, baseball, and President's Cup here. All right. Thanks, Martin. All right. That does it for another episode of the Friday Golf Podcast. Today's episode was edited and produced by PJ Clark. Big thanks to PJ for getting this up quick. And, he's headed to Bethpage to get a little taste of Bethpage Black before the Ryder Cup. So big thanks to PJ. If you haven't yet, easy way to get involved with Fried Egg is sign up for the newsletter. Go to thefriedegg.com/subscribe. Sign up for our free 3-day-a-week newsletter where we write about what's going on in the golf world. This is a great thing to subscribe to that's free. Big thank you to you guys for listening. We will be back later this week with another episode of the the Friday Golf Podcast.